I found my password leaked on a database. If you reuse your password on multiple websites, you're going to get screwed. I wanted to share with you my experience so that you take advantage of it and secure your digital life. Hello everyone, welcome to this video in which I'm going to share my thoughts about managing your passwords. Recently, I found one of my passwords leaked on a database on the internet, waiting for prying eyes to just take it and use it on my accounts. I'm not going to tell the exact database, and I'm certainly not going to reveal my password, but just to tell you that passwords get leaked, that's a fact, and you have to do something about it. If you reuse your password on multiple websites, you're going to get screwed. I wanted to share with you my experience so that you take advantage of it and secure your digital life. So I had a deal with one of my friends who is also a ethical hacker, and we challenged ourselves to try to find what footprint does the other has on the internet. So we set up our deadlines and we started the challenge. So I tried to look for ways to do proper enumeration on my target, who is my friend, and then I tried to see if there are any leaked passwords for him. There were some, but they were old, and just out of curiosity, I wanted to know if my password is leaked as well. And I couldn't believe my eyes. I really was stoned that I found my password on the internet. It was just waiting for me to find it. But luckily, it was a password that I didn't use anymore, and for some years now, I have been using a password manager. Previously, I talked about cracking passwords, the video where I explained the techniques that ethical hackers can apply in their assessments to find passwords. But these techniques are also used by black hats to crack hashes of legitimate users, sadly. So it's important that you stay safe on the internet, and the best way to do that is to use strong passwords, because passwords are not leaving anytime soon. So I drew this chart, not a chart really, just a table, where I listed the criteria that I think are most important for a password manager, let's say. And here are the approaches that we can choose to have a strong password and secure presence on the internet. And down here, I defined some formula. So in this case, I'm taking security with a weight of 2, because for me, security is very important. So this is to say how this approach affects the security of my passwords and therefore my digital security. The second one is, of course, convenience. It's important that the winner approach must be convenient, because otherwise I will take a lot of time finding the password or remembering the password, and that's gonna be counterproductive, and I will end up fallbacking to bad habits. The third one is disaster recovery. So what happens if I lose my passwords? Do I have any second copy? Or let's say your password is breached, like mine. If you are using your password or just doing a slight variation on that password, then it's really disastrous, because all your websites, or at least the critical ones, would be a danger. And fourth, the price. So I gave this disaster recovery a weight of 2, convenience just 1, because I can tolerate being less convenient. That's just for me. It depends on each one of you, so you might change the weight accordingly. But of course, I think we agree that security should be the most weighted. So the price for me is not a big deal. I can pay as long as I have a strong service, a mature service. But for others, the price might be a decisive criteria. And finally, I added a setup barrier. That is to say, how easy it is for me to set up or adopt a solution. So with that said, let's try to explore the different approaches and see how they rank, and finally we'll choose the winner. So the first approach is not use any vault. And by vault, I mean a bucket of passwords where you store your passwords in a encrypted way. because obviously we need to store those passwords somewhere. So it could be my brain, which doesn't handle complex passwords. So I will always use simple, predictable passwords, although they seem strong. So if we take the example of password 1234566 at dot, that's a long password that has uppercase, lowercase, digits, and symbols, but it's weak because, as we saw in the previous video, we can easily crack it, or we can guess it as well. So my brain, which is kind of a vault for my passwords in the first approach, would not be able to remember passwords. So I'm going to reuse passwords or use weak passwords or predictable passwords. In this case, the security would be on a scale from 1 to 5, 1. Why 1? That's because I might actually remember some passwords which are random and strong, or maybe use passphrases. So let's say, for example, that you want to use a password for Twitter. Well, Twitter has a bird and it's a social media website. So I might choose a passphrase, like maybe a sentence from a song or from a book, which talks about maybe a bird and socializing or something like that. And I can apply the same thing for other websites. So that's why it has some security, but it's not enough. It's not enough at all. Convenience, I guess, is 2, because for each website, and nowadays everything has a website. You want to socialize, you have 10 websites or maybe 20, and for each one of them you need a password. It's very hard to remember all the passwords. I think that convenience here would be 2. Disaster recovery, that would be 1, maybe 2. Now you might argue that there is no such thing as disaster recovery when you don't have a password vault, but let's say your password is breached, like mine. If you are using your password or just doing a slight variation on that password, then it's really disastrous because all your websites, or at least the critical ones, would be a danger. So I would rather give this 1 because this approach doesn't handle disaster very well. And the price, the price you pay by money, not the price that you pay when you lose your digital identity, well, that's free. So I would say it's 5. The setup barrier doesn't exist, so it's 5. Good. So the first approach scored 16. Let's see what we have in a DIY vault. And what I mean by DIY is, let's say you are a developer or an enthusiast in coding and you want to build your own password manager or your own vault. Well, unless you are a really good developer, I think it's a bad idea. It's the same thing as developing your own cryptography algorithms. It's very, very hard to get right, and it's very easy to introduce vulnerabilities that can put your passwords at risk. Now, to give you an example, I had a friend who is a senior developer, and he knows what he does. He is senior. And he developed a password manager for himself. It was built in, I believe it was Spring Boot in the back end and React in the front end. And he gave it to me to test it for security vulnerabilities. And let me tell you that it was not secure, to say the least. It was vulnerable to cross-site scripting, coarse misconfiguration, and I gave him the advice that you are a senior developer and you know what you're doing. From a coding perspective, but from a security standpoint, I think it's better to just choose a password manager from the different vendors that you have available rather than developing your own solution. So security in this case is 1 because it's just a false sense of security. You think that your passwords are encrypted locally, but because the application suffered from known security issues, anyone can steal the plain text passwords. So I would give it 1. I don't think this approach offers a good convenience unless you share your vault across different devices. So you develop maybe a mobile application, web application, and if you develop a web application, you need to host it somewhere if you want to access it from anywhere. So you would just have a local vault on your PC, and that's not helping at all in convenience. So I would give it 1. Regarding disaster, if you lose your copy of the passwords, if you don't have a replica of that copy, then you're screwed pretty much. But if you use multiple passwords using your DIY solution, then you would have one unique password per website. So I would say that would be maybe 3, because you would still have unique passwords per website. But if you lose your copy, then you're screwed. For the price, it's kind of free, but you are investing your time. So let's put 5 here because it's free, but the setup barrier is high because you need to develop everything, fix bugs and host the solution, etc. So it's kind of hard. And depending on your expertise, that might take a while and might need some skills from your side. So I would give this 2 if you are like a senior developer. Now let's talk about ad hoc vault and what I mean by that. So this approach says, hey, I don't want to develop my own solution, so I'm going to use something that exists on the internet. But at the same time, I don't want to give my passwords to third-party services or cloud services like here, Cloud Vault, like 1Password or LastPass, etc. What I can do is use a local vault using software such as KeePass, and then take that copy and replicate it to other devices by just uploading the vault to a sharing service like Dropbox. So in this case, my passwords would be protected by a master password. Only me who knows that password, which is long and complex, and maybe it's a long passphrase. And when it's sitting locally, it's encrypted. I can decrypt it and work with my passwords. But once I'm done, I can just save my file locally, and because it's shared, it automatically syncs with other devices. So I can save my passwords on my PC and then go to my phone and download the updated copy. This provides an added security because, one, you would encrypt your passwords and it will decouple the management of the passwords from sharing the password vault. So I would say that the security for this approach would be 4. For convenience, assuming that I'm using a sharing service that syncs my vault to other devices, then I can say that convenience could be 3. For disaster, well, if I lose my local copy, either from my phone or my other devices, I can simply just log into my Dropbox account and download the latest copy. There's still a risk that Dropbox can go down, so I won't have access to my vault, but that's unlikely to have both situations, losing your copy from all of your devices and from Dropbox. So I think from a disaster recovery standpoint, it ranks 5. Now, from the price, it depends on how you want to share your vault across your devices. If you opt for Dropbox free plan, you have the right to share your files between 3 devices, which is for me more than enough. So I'm using a copy on my personal PC, a copy on my smartphone, and then I sync it also with my professional laptop. So the price here is free, basically, so it's 5. And the setup barrier is a bit complicated. Not really complicated, but it's not straightforward. You need to download the local software. In this case, I'm using KeePass. You need to set up your Dropbox account and define a syncing folder where you put your password vault. So it's not really complicated, but it's not straightforward as well. So I would give it 3. All right, so we're starting to have a winner, I guess, here, but let's see what Cloud Vaults offer. So for Cloud Vault, the security is the same as Ad Hoc Vault, I guess, because you have the possibility to define your own passwords strong enough and random enough, and you store them locally. You encrypt them with your master password, or at least a derived key from that master password. Even though your vault is uploaded to the vendor, it's encrypted with a secret you're the only one who knows. So I would say it's 4 From a convenience perspective, this is where I want to explore some areas. A lot of those providers, they give you not only the service, the Vault, but they also allow you to autocomplete your logging forms using web browser extensions, for example. They allow you to share your password with other users. And those features, I'm not willing to give up security for such convenience. So for me, all I need is the ability to access my passwords from different devices. And at the same time, I don't want to give any other software, even though it's developed by that vendor, I don't want to give it access to my plain text passwords. Just Google reports on HackerOne or publicly available on the internet that take advantage of security vulnerabilities in those extensions, and attackers would always seek for the path of least resistance. They are not going to attack the encryption because it's really strong. They can, however, exfiltrate your plaintext passwords by exploiting web vulnerabilities or things that are not related to encryption. So for me, the convenience here would be the same as the convenience for the ad hoc vault. All right, looks like we have a tie up until now. What about disaster? Well, remember that in ad hoc vault, we had two layers. The first one is the software that keeps my passwords and encrypts them. And the second service, which distributes that vault across devices. Here, we can say that we have only one solution that does both. So it's kind of a single point of failure, if I may, although it's not the right term. I would say that if you lose your password in one of your devices, you still have access to others. And there's an unlikely chance that the Cloud Vault would be unavailable. But there's a problem because some vendors require you to enter your master password with a secret key. I think that's the case with 1Password. We need other factors to decrypt our vaults, so there's a chance that we might lose one of them. I would give it 4. Regarding the price, it really depends on providers, but all of them are paying services depending on the plan that you choose. So I think 3 is fair because the prices are quite low, to be honest, but still it requires you to pay something. For the setup barrier, I guess it's not that hard to set up your account on one of those vendors and start right away. So I don't think it has any barriers, so maybe 5 is good. All right, so looks like we have a winner here. It's the ad hoc vault. Now, I might be biased because I'm using this solution right here, but you might get different results with these two if you defined different weights for the criteria that we have here. Probably most of you would either choose this approach or this one. So I prepared a list of password managers and solutions that allow you to do both. So what I'm using is KeePass. It's a desktop application that is available on both Mac and Windows. I believe it's also available on Linux. There is also a version for Android. You have one for iPhone and iPad. You have even versions for BlackBerry, but you have also Linux here. So I think it's safe to say that we can use this software in multiple devices. Otherwise, you have a lot of solutions. LastPass allows you to try it for 30 days for free, and you also have single users and families and business plans, but I think that most of you would opt for this first option. There's 1Password, which offers somewhat the same prices, maybe $2.99 for one user, which is the same as here. It's a little bit cheaper, but for families, LastPass is cheaper than 1Password. But the one I like is this one for people who want to start securing their passwords without paying. Bitwarden comes with a free organization plan that gives you free access with the ability to define 2 users. So you can use it with your soulmate, and it provides you with unlimited passwords. So if you want to just start out without paying anything and having still a password manager that allows you to define unique, random, strong, long passwords for each one of your websites, then maybe this is the way to go. I hope that you take passwords seriously because they are going to really secure your digital life or be a disaster. Don't forget also to define a second factor authentication for all of the websites that support them. So let me know in the comments below what are password managers that you use, and do you use the ad hoc approach, and if such, what are the solutions that you have adopted? Once again, thank you for watching and see you in another video.
If you found this content helpful, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel so that you get updates whenever I publish a new video on ethical hacking and bug bounty hunting. If you're new to hacking and want to learn the basics, check out the free OWASP Top 10 theory and hands-on training on thehackerish.com and apply your knowledge on the lab which supports it. If you enjoy learning with videos, I invite you to watch the OWASP Top 10 YouTube playlist. However, I encourage you to first try to solve the lab exercises so that you don't spoil them. Don't forget that there are supporting blog posts for most of the videos you watch on this YouTube channel. I also encourage you to subscribe to the Friday newsletter on thehackerish.com to gain some new hacking knowledge at the end of the week. If you enjoy listening while doing other things at the same time, check out the Hack for Fun and Profit podcast, link in the description box. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and go find some bugs.